Part 38. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 378. Lu Chang'an and Nuan and Hans Hizi walked out of the ward together. The ward immediately seemed less crowded. An old lady with white hair but a flushed face walked in. She glanced at the other people in the room, then nimbly rolled onto the bed, lay down and groaned twice, then took out my phone and started playing. Since there is no legislation on sexual harassment of animals in China, my lawyer told me that I cannot sue you. Zhu Huntang saw that Lu Chang'an had left. Of course, he had no interest in staying in this place full of disinfectant smell, and was ready to left. Your dog bit me to the point of being hospitalized. Are you planning to sue me? Wu Fan was so angry that he didn't want to speak. In short, you should not appear in Beilong Center again. Zhu Huntang nodded without denying it. Haha, do you care? Wu Fan sneered angrily. Is it yours in Beilong Center? My family. What did you say? Wu Fan was stunned for a moment. Beilong Center belongs to my family, and Beilong Centers all over the country belong to my family. Zhu Huntang did not feel complacent, he just stated the facts, asked the bodyguard to open the door and walked out. Facing insignificant people, Zhu Huntang was too lazy to show off. You don't have to do drafts when you're bragging. Wu Fan lay stiffly for a while, then tentatively looked at Zhong Qing. Zhong Qing ignored Wu Fan and did not prove anything for Zhu Huntang. No one would care whether I believed it or not. Zhu Huntang left the hospital and looked at the ugly flowers, plants, and trees in the flower bed, and then felt that the terrible things Lu Chang'an said must have sucked the vitality of these flowers, plants, and trees, otherwise why would they be so ugly? Thinking about it carefully, the impression seems to be that any plant in the hospital has a deep and not fresh feeling. So Zhu Huntang quickened his pace. Although he was a fairy, he was also a delicate and beautiful girl. It was normal for him to be unable to resist those things that coveted his fresh life breath. Where is my dog? Zhu Huntang asked. It's locked up. Generally speaking, dogs that have bitten people are no longer suitable to be guard dogs. They have too much desire to take the initiative to attack. Oh, then give it to Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang thought for a while and said, found a very suitable reason, and ran out to chase the person happily. Lu Chang'an and An Nuan and Hans Hizi had already separated. In the evening, Lu Yuwang had a dinner date with Professor Ling, invited two girls to accompany them, and also went shopping. Lu Chang'an naturally did not want to join in the fun. Lu Chang'an didn't go anywhere. He just stood at the intersection in front of the hospital, watching the cars and people going by. This is a typical scenario in modern society. The improvement of productivity has brought about the improvement of various scientific and technological civilizations, which in turn has led to a population explosion. The average life expectancy has increased from 20 to 30 years in the past to 70 or 80 years. This has happened a long time ago. It would have been unimaginable 200 years ago. In a relatively long time for Lu Chang'an, if he stayed in a certain place for hundreds of thousands or millions of years, the earth would not have changed much. It was just the evolution and extinction of some organisms, and the surface of the earth is full of vicissitudes of life, but Lu Chang'an can hardly imagine what the world will look like in 100 years. Lu Chang'an was used to being like an ordinary young man when he was with the people around him. Only when he was alone did he feel a lot of contrasts and sighs. What are you having for dinner tonight? Buy some oxtail stewed with taro and eat it, it will be delicious just thinking about it. Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an turned around and saw Zhu Huntang. A tall bodyguard led a black Rottweiler dog from across the zebra crossing and ran towards Zhu Huntang. Why don't you call me the master of Zhu Fenglai bullshit sect? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang lazily. I noticed that you look quite handsome when you are in a daze. Zhu Huntang complimented his sect master casually. Temperament is an intuitive perception of cultivation and connotation, while handsomeness is often used to describe appearance and movement performance. Lu Chang'an corrected. Do you want to get a dog? Zhu Huntang told him his true intention, otherwise why would he praise him first? Lu Chang'an glanced at the black Rottweiler. The Rottweiler with its tongue sticking out raised its head, met Lu Chang'an's peaceful eyes, and suddenly whimpered, as if something was pressing on its back, and lay down on the ground. Does it have rabies? Zhu Huntang was startled. Dogs with this disease often tremble all over, as was the case with the high-level Templar warrior in front of him. No, the bodyguard answered Zhu Huntang firmly. The vaccine was administered regularly, and the person who bit him today was naturally examined. But it seems to be very scared. Does it know that it has done something wrong, and is it afraid that I won't let it go? Zhu Huntang bent down and touched the dog's head. You're so good, you obviously didn't do anything wrong, it's someone else I want to force you into peace. Lu Chang'an is not very interested in live dogs. If a dog dies for various reasons and is still edible, Lu Chang'an will not waste it, but he will not kill the dog just to eat dog meat. It has bitten someone before. I was afraid it would bite me, so I wanted to give it to you, Zhu Huntang said to Lu Chang'an again. Your ideas and candid attitude are really admirable. Lu Chang'an gave her a chestnut to express his appreciation. Do you want it? Zhu Huntang raised his hands and hugged his head. Lu Chang'an thought for a moment and took the leash from the bodyguard. The Rottweiler was lying on the ground, still trembling, wagging its tail, and its eyes seemed moist. Lu Chang'an knew that the dog was not worried about being made into dog meat hotpot or the like, but that after his last transformation, the aura of the prehistoric beast had not completely dissipated. Ordinary people could not feel it, but this creature is very sensitive to this. Huskies and the like are another matter. Thank you, Lu Chang'an said to Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang breathed a sigh of relief. He always felt that the dog that had bitten someone would be a bit embarrassing to keep alive, but Zhu Huntang would not turn around and kill it. After all, in Zhu Huntang's view, high-level Templar warriors did not do anything wrong. Giving it to Lu Chang'an is the most suitable choice, because Qin Yinan has become Lu Chang'an's licking dog. What is the difficulty in regaining another puppy? Lu Chang'an took the dog home. At first, the high-ranking Templar warriors were a little limp, but in the end they did not dare to resist Lu Chang'an or go against his wishes. They trotted to keep up with Lu Chang'an's pace, but kept their heads down and stared the whole time. Landing on the ground, it completely lost the ferocious aura of a large dog. Your first one was much stronger than you, and he dared to pounce on me, Lu Chang'an sighed. It is common for creatures in this world, whether they are humans or dogs, to become worse from generation to generation. Just talking casually, when it comes to physical strength, the one in front of me seems to be the strongest. While walking, it started to rain. Lu Chang'an was still walking slowly and leisurely. If he walked fast, he would get wet, and if he walked slowly, he would get wet. There was only rain on the road ahead. Even if he found a place to hide from the rain and his body was already soaked, what was the point? When she returned home, Lu Chang'an saw Zhou Dongdong sitting at the foot of the steps. She took a small paper boat and put it into the puddle in front of her. Soon the raindrops wet the paper boat and filled it with water. Sank. Zhou Dongdong was stunned for a moment, and saw Lu Chang'an coming over. He howled twice quickly, pointed at the sunken paper boat, and ran to Lu Chang'an. He was about to tell Brother Chang'an that his paper boat had sunk, and he saw it at a glance. The black dog followed Lu Chang'an. Brother Chang'an, is this a dog or a piglet? Zhou Dongdong asked doubtfully. The dogs she had seen the most were the various curly-haired puppies on the street. It was hard to recognize such big ones. Not to mention that the whole body was wet. A dog is alive, not meat. Lu Chang'an introduced it succinctly and clearly to prevent her from wanting to eat and crying at the same time. Will it bite me? Although Zhou Dongdong likes dogs, such a big dog still scares her. It will turn you into dog meat after it bites you. Lu Chang'an patted the dog's head with a gentle expression. I will train it to take you to and from school. I can ride it to school, Zhou Dongdong said happily. Lu Chang'an was puzzled. Zhou Dongdong always understood the messy meaning from his simple and direct words. Is there such a meaning in my words? Do you want to be a child who rides a dog to school? Isn't it possible? Zhou Dongdong opened his legs and quickly tried to imitate the movements of riding a horse with his hands. No. Zhou Dongdong was greatly disappointed. It turned out that he could not be a child riding a dog to school. I recommend a book called The Lord God Hunter. It is a high-quality novel and naturally has its merits. If you are tired of the daily urban literature, it is good to change your taste. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 379. Someone rides an elephant to school. Someone rides a giraffe to school. Dash note, fantasy scene. Someone rides a black bear to school. Dash. There are also people riding buffaloes to school, which was something that was often seen in the countryside in the past. In the morning, the mist filled the village, and the children who got up early sat on the backs of the buffaloes and slowly let the buffaloes chew the grass all the way to school. The cow rope is tied with an iron drill and inserted into the soil. At noon, the buffalo has eaten enough grass, and then rides the cow back home for lunch. This kind of scene is also a common thing. At that time, it was not uncommon for children to enter first grade at the age of 7 or 8, and a dog could not carry them. Zhou Dongdong is not old. The weight figure is huge. The rain was still pattering down. Although it was autumn rain and cold, the momentum seemed to still have the boiling atmosphere of summer. It was like exploding beads hitting the puddles. Lu Chang'an looked at the sky. The dark clouds had already gathered in the sky over Juncha at noon, and at this time, a large formation was formed, and the edges could not be seen at a glance. En Nuan and the others' shopping was slightly affected, but there weren't many places in Juncha that women of all levels liked. Now that they regard Bailong Center as their first choice, the rain won't have much of an impact. Lu Chang'an changed into a pair of boxer shorts and a short t-shirt and came down. The black Rottweiler was huddled in the corner motionless. Zhou Dongdong stuck his head out from the gap in the steel pattern of the stair railing to observe. If it pounces, your head will be stuck here and you can't move, and then you will have to take injections for a month. Lu Chang'an took her out and did not try to blame her, because this was a normal operation. A month of injections. Zhou Dongdong touched his butt and said to Lu Chang'an in surprise, "My butt seems to be starting to hurt." Lu Chang'an ignored her, sat behind the rain line, and started peeling the taro scalp with chopsticks. Zhou Dongdong touched his butt and looked at the dog for a while, then ran over to watch Lu Chang'an peeling taro. "Brother Chang'an, will the dog stay with us from now on?" What's its name? You give it a name." "I can't," Zhou Dongdong reminded Brother Chang'an loudly. "Why do you always have to give her problems? I don't even know how to pick a name, and yet I am so loud." Lu Chang'an thought for a while. "Let's call her Dongdong. It has the same name as me." Zhou Dongdong was very happy. "No, it is Winter's Winter, and you are the word dong next to the word dong. Isn't that the same?" "How is this the same? Do you know why your name is Zhou Dongdong?" "How do I know? I'm not my mother, but my mother is also a stupid mother. She must not know it either." Zhou Dongdong felt confident as he spoke. Brother Chang'an secretly told himself that his mother was stupid. Mom, from now on, Zhou Dongdong felt that he didn't know this or that, and it was understandable that he couldn't learn this or that. "Because you were born in winter and are very edible, you are called Zhou Dongdong," Lu Chang'an explained. So that's it, Zhou Dongdong suddenly realized, and decided to wait for his mother to come back in the evening and tell her why he was called Zhou Dongdong. "Yes. But you will be called Dongdong from now on." "How do I know whether you are going to be called Go Dongdong or Zhou Dongdong?" Zhou Dongdong discovered another serious problem. For example, in the future, when Brother Chang'an has something delicious to eat, he will say dong dong, but I rushed down and found that he just gave the dog delicious food. Isn't that sad? That's right. Yeah. Then, since it's a girl, let's call it Lusin. Lu Chang'an thought for a moment. He couldn't tell whether the dog in front of him was bred locally or imported. However, the Rottweiler was not a native breed, so he took the a foreign name is fine. What are you doing? Lusin. Lulu, yeah. Lusin. I learned. After naming the dog, Lu Chang'an directed Zhou Dongdong to move the sick little table that she had brought back once. The sick little table was naturally repaired by Lu Chang'an. At first, they said they would do homework together on it, but so far they haven't done any homework because Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong don't have much in common except that they like to eat. One thing they all have in common is that they don't like doing homework. I'll use the table to build a dog house for Lusin later and place it under the stairs, Lu Chang'an said to Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong was very happy because the reason he persuaded Brother Chang'an to build the small table was so that he and Brother Chang'an could do homework on the table in the future. This reason obviously went against Zhou Dongdong's true will. Lu Chang'an prepared a large bowl of taro, processed the oxtail, and made a large pot of fragrant oxtail stewed with taro. This menu will not make you tired of eating, and it will also fill you up. After a big bowl, you can enjoy the gentle breeze after the rain. It is a complete enjoyment in cool weather. After Lu Chang'an finished eating, he started to make a kennel. He used a small table as the basic structure, added wooden boards on all sides to make the walls, and opened a hole on one side for the dog to enter and exit. It was a simple kennel. After Zhou Dongdong licked the stew pot, he came to see Lu Chang'an making a doghouse. Lu Chang'an saw that her mouth and face were all covered in taro paste, so he took a towel and wiped it clean before driving her upstairs to do her homework. After Lu Chang'an finished making the kennel, he drove the Rottweiler to stay in the kennel. This huge fierce dog is now very comfortable, but training it is not a matter of time. Let's start tomorrow. Just as he was about to go back to continue the painting work, Lu Chang'an's cell phone rang, and Qin Yinan asked him if he was at home. Qin Yinan drove by here, made a call and drove over. He went directly upstairs and entered the house, where he saw Lu Chang'an painting primer. Where are you going? Lu Chang'an asked casually. Qin Yinan looked a little tired from traveling. The hollow lace of the skirt was slightly wet by the rain, and it was wet against the delicate and moist skin. The lines of the legs were wrapped in the skirt in an elegant and graceful way. The mature woman's slightly tired and lazy look was reflected in the slight coolness. On a rainy day, it is not so hot and exciting, but the tones of an oil painting like a rain alley are quiet and moving. I received a call early this morning saying that my great-grandfather had fallen. The brush in Lu Chang'an's hand fell to the ground. It was just a false alarm. Lu Chang'an raised his head and glared at Qin Yinan. He specially told me that it's a trivial matter, so I don't need to tell you, Qin Yinan laughed. The so-called concern is chaos. Even Lu Chang'an was like this. He didn't think at the first time that if something happened to Qin Peng, Qin Yinan, where would it appear here? Celebrate the new year together this year, Lu Chang'an said. I have no problem. Of course Qin Yinan can understand that what he said about celebrating the new year together is not to celebrate the new year with Qin Yinan alone, but to go to the old house to celebrate the new year with the old man. But you come with me to celebrate the new year at my old man's house, your daughter. Do you have any objections, friends? One is your ex-fiancé, and the other is still planning to marry your great-granddaughter to your ancestor. Are you looking for trouble? Lu Chang'an handed the paintbrush to Qin Yinan. Give me some paint. Qin Yinan unexpectedly took the brush. This person really loses his temper and arranges people at will. How could she do such a thing? I recommend a book, Trafford Sellers Club, a very powerful book. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahwa. Chapter 380. There will be a chapter later. Chinyanan looked at the brush in his hand and then at the paint bucket. For a moment, he didn't know where to start. Didn't you do a good job grilling the barbecue? Lu Chang'an was puzzled by Chinyanan's confusion. Can it be the same? Chinyanan realized that this person thought that since she applied oil to the barbecue or the barbecue sauce was quite even, she should paint the wood in front of her, the wooden bed. What's the difference? Lu Chang'an seemed to be able to accept the dullness of women in technical work, and said calmly, before painting, you dip the bristles into the paint halfway. If there is a little too much, just gently tap the edge of the paint bucket so that there will be no dripping paint during application. When painting, hold the handle of the brush between your thumb and index finger, apply force on the fingertips to slightly bend the bristles, and then the paint can be applied. It should be even and even, avoid repeatedly brushing the areas that have already been applied, and just make the brushing surface smooth. It sounds like applying sauce to a barbecue. Chinyanan stuffed the brush into the paint bucket. This man could actually teach others how to paint. Is there anything he couldn't do? Lu Chang'an nodded, thinking of Chinyanan's barbecue, and couldn't help but take a look at her slender legs. Generally speaking, lamb legs suitable for barbecue materials have the same proportions. They are neither fat nor thin, and the calves are slender. The thighs also won't accumulate too much fat and muscle. Ah, the brush fell into the bucket. Chinyanan was startled and raised his head to look at Lu Chang'an innocently. Why do you look so innocent in your eyes? How do I know it will fall in? This is a mistake you made. The innocent look in your eyes shows that you are not unaware that this is a mistake. It's just that you hope to use this look to act coquettishly in exchange for the forgiveness and tolerance of the person you are acting like a spoiled child. Lu Chang'an nodded understandingly. Look at me, there is nothing wrong with acting coquettishly, but when facing other people, if you do something wrong, you must consciously take responsibility instead of showing innocent eyes. How could I act coquettishly? Chinyanan didn't think so. Do you think everyone is a little girl like an Nuan, who can do nothing but act coquettishly? That's right. She only acts like a baby when she is a little girl. You are 7 years older than her and you are already a mature enough woman. Lu Chang'an nodded and said apologetically, I am used to preaching, but in fact your age advantage does not require me to tell you such simple truths. Age advantage? Chinyanan just wanted to take out the brush from the paint bucket and paint his face. Lu Chang'an took out the brush and threw it away. He replaced it with a brush and handed it to Chinyanan. He held her hand from behind and said, I'll teach you. Chinyanan felt like she was being hugged. She thought her body would be stiff and dull, but unexpectedly she tightened her waist and abdomen, softened her body, lowered her head slightly, and leaned on it naturally. Her arms and fingers were as soft as if they had no bones. Feeling the movements of his fingers, he gently picked up the brush and started brushing on the wooden board. By the way, he is not some strange male who has never had close contact with him. I have been hugged by him countless times, right? It's just that there didn't seem to be any time when he held her in his arms with strange emotions. It was probably the same this time. Chinyanan turned her head and looked at his focused profile. When the man was doing something seriously without any expression, always exuding a charming feeling, that seemingly frozen expression, that projected gaze, and the sculpted cheek contour, Chinyanan opened his mouth involuntarily, and a strange feeling sprouted in his heart, and he couldn't help but feel a little confused. What does it look like to be a man who can accept and not reject being embraced? The breath from his mouth was sprayed on my face. Lu Chang'an stretched out a finger to poke Chinyanan's face away. Have you learned this? You have to hug me. Chinyanan blushed and poked Lu Chang'an's cheek with her backhand without showing any signs of weakness. She really wanted to make him angry to death. Are you a saint from the Saintess sect? Is it impure to be sprayed in the face by someone else? Your great-grandmother learned calligraphy when she was a child. This is how I taught her. Lu Chang'an asked suspiciously, your calligraphy is not very good, right? I will teach you when I have time. Thank you, I'm not interested now. Qin Yinan started brushing on the wooden board with a brush. She had told him before that she wanted to learn calligraphy from him. Very good. Lu Chang'an nodded. He did not want Qin Yinan to have the same interests as Ye Sijin. The good thing? Qin Yinan ignored his confusion and brushed on the wooden board casually, feeling that it was simple and a little fun to create. Lu Chang'an went upstairs and ordered a bowl of pork trotter noodles from Zhou Dongdong's house. Zhou Shuling has been improving her pig trotter noodles these days. The family always prepares braised pig trotters, and bone soup, which is convenient for Lu Chang'an to use. Brother Chang'an, you just finished eating and want to eat noodles again? Zhou Dongdong, who had his cheek pressed against the table, asked with concern. However, he was neither concerned that Brother Chang'an was hungry nor that he wanted to eat his noodles, but just wanted to eat with him. When I see things related to things, I get used to asking about them. If you keep lying down, your mother will come back. Lu Chang'an had no doubt that Zhou Dongdong had been in this position since he went upstairs, and it has continued until now. Zhou Dongdong bravely maintained his comfortable posture watching TV and watched Brother Chang'an go downstairs. Lu Chang'an went downstairs and handed the noodles to Qin Yinan. Let's eat the noodles. Thank you. Qin Yinan was indeed a little hungry and a little touched. Although he never had a few nice words to say to others, sometimes it always made people feel that he was actually a little interested in her. She hasn't eaten anything today. Lu Chang'an took the brush and continued painting. Do you have the key to the upstairs? Qin Yinan knew that Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong lived upstairs, and she just saw Lu Chang'an coming down from upstairs. Yeah, Lu Chang'an nodded. Then Zhou Shuling also has the key to your house. Qin Yinan took a bite of the pig's trotters. Lu Chang'an definitely did not braise the pig's trotters in such a short time. The average taste was probably Zhou Shuling's craftsmanship. Oh. Oh what? Then do you still give the keys to your home to others? Qin Yinan said casually while eating noodles. No more. Lu Chang'an shook his head. I usually don't lock the door, but Zhou Shuling likes to be nosy. She always locks the door for me when she comes downstairs and sees me unlocking it. Then give me your key. I'll send you some furniture and electrical appliances in the next few days, Qin Yinan said casually. Lu Chang'an went to get a key and handed it to Qin Yinan. Put it on the stool. Qin Yinan held the noodle bowl, still speaking in a casual tone. If one day, of course, it's best not to happen, and it's best not to let Qin Yinan put the key to his house. Such a cool line to say. A key is roughly similar to a man's passport to heaven. In the social definition of ordinary people, having the key to a man's home means becoming the mistress of his home. Except for people like Lu Chang'an who don't lock the door. But others don't think so. They don't know that he is the kind of person who doesn't lock the door, and they don't know that the key to his house is given to anyone casually. In other words, the sentence "Oh, I have the key to his house" can still become a weapon with maximum lethality at some point. Qin Yinan finished eating the noodles, washed the bowl, took the chopsticks, and said to Lu Chang'an, "Put it here, or should I return it?" "Put it here and let Zhou Shuling take it up later." Lu Chang'an also picked up the bowls and chopsticks from upstairs. Just as he was talking, the door was pushed open. "Do you want to change the anti-theft lock?" Zhou Shuling walked in while touching the padlock on the door. "Are we guarding you?" Lu Chang'an said casually. "What are you trying to prevent me from doing?" Zhou Shuling turned around unhappily and saw Qin Yinan holding bowls and chopsticks. She quickly smiled and said, "Miss Qin is here. Have you eaten?" "I just ate noodles." "Lu Chang'an brought the noodles from your house," Qin Yinan said apologetically. "He is too lazy to make them himself, so he always troubles you, right?" "No trouble. What's the trouble?" "He always dislikes the taste of my food. Otherwise, I can cook him 3 meals a day. Zhou Shuling shook her fingers, as if making soy milk. I just don't have much to say when drinking soy milk. You should buy better beans next time. Lu Chang'an still had some objections. Look. Zhou Shuling pointed at Lu Chang'an as if proving to Qin Yinan. He just picks one bite to eat. Qin Yinan was actually a little unhappy. Zhou Shuling seemed to be a very measured woman, but since your cooking is mediocre, don't even think about cooking 3 meals a day for others. Bring the bowl up. Lu Chang'an pointed at the bowl. Zhou Shuling took it over and said to Lu Chang'an, I will make cow hooves for you to drink with you tonight. Okay, don't make the ox hooves too soft. Lu Chang'an nodded. You can't miss the delicious ox hooves. Miss Qin, would you like to eat something too? Zhou Shuling asked Qin Yinan again. No, I'll leave later. Qin Yinan shook her head. She was not a guy like Lu Chang'an who could be brought home by a woman using the hooves of an ox. Miss Qin knows how to be moderate. Zhou Shuling thought about her own understanding and walked out the door with some regret. Qin Yinan's ears are not as sharp as Lu Chang'an's, but she can still hear Zhou Shuling whispering as she walked out the door, why is Miss Qin so good looking? Did she eat less? Oops, I recently made pork trotter noodles and ate too many pig trotters. But even if I didn't eat them, I wouldn't have a figure like hers. I don't know how I grew those breasts and butt. It's so amazing. Qin Yinan could hear it, and she felt that Lu Chang'an could definitely hear it. Fortunately, Zhou Shuling was praising someone, so she felt a little embarrassed. She approached Lu Chang'an and sat down reservedly. Do you want me to help with the paint? Lu Chang'an gave her another brush. Have you been praised, and the hostility has been eliminated? Lu Chang'an asked without raising his head. What did you say? Qin Yinan denied in surprise. Could she be more subtle? Zhou Shuling is actually very good at eating. In the past, her breakfast could not be sold out. She felt it was a pity, so she kept it for herself at noon and evening. Lu Chang'an still knew that Zhou Shuling often gave Lu Chang'an breakfast, but it was all fresh. If she didn't sell the food and it didn't taste good, she would keep it for herself. She is a woman who knows how to live a good life. Qin Yinan did not want to show pity or sympathy, but smiled. I hope her life will get better in the future. Meeting you is considered her blessing. That's true. Lu Chang'an agreed. She looks pretty good, and her figure is actually pretty good, and she seems to be fertile. Qin Yinan commented while looking at Lu Chang'an's expression. As a woman, commenting on other women's ability to have children is a result of the male-centered thinking rooted in the heart. Lu Chang'an shook his head. If you really want to say that women are good at having children, Zhou Shuling is still a little behind you, right? You, how can I not? I don't. Qin Yinan interrupted Lu Chang'an's comment, blushing and pulling up her skirt to cover the curve of her waist. Look at it, you will know that if you say something to others, your face will be as red as a monkey's butt. I didn't. Qin Yinan touched her cheek. Who told you to talk to others and look over at the same time? I didn't look at you. You were blocking me from painting. Please. Please brush slowly, I'm going back. Goodbye. Qin Yinan took the key to Lu Chang'an's house and went downstairs. This person was really good. He still used that kind of padlock at the door of his house. I wonder if he would be willing to change it to a fingerprint lock or a facial recognition lock, or not to change it for now. Well, after all, I have the key now, and maybe it can be used for other purposes. Lu Chang'an had been painting at home. When Zhou Shuling finished making the cow hooves and called him, he washed his face and went upstairs to eat supper. Zhou Dongdong had already washed his hands and was sitting upright at the table. Lu Chang'an was sitting opposite her. Zhou Shuling came over with a basin of cow hooves and a bottle of wine. Mom, Brother Chang'an said that I was born in winter and I am very edible, so my name is Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong finally found the opportunity to educate his mother. Do you know? You stupid kid, you were born in May. Zhou Shuling rolled her eyes at Lu Chang'an, who was watching intently next to her. Zhou Dongdong was a little confused. What did his mother say have to do with the fact that he was born in winter and was very edible, so he was called Zhou Dongdong? Zhou Dongdong didn't pay much attention to this matter. She had already told her mother why she was called Zhou Dongdong. As for whether her mother didn't understand it as much as she did when she listened to the lecture, Zhou Dongdong had no choice. Because she is about to enter the barrier. This bottle of wine was left over from the last time I went back to my hometown for a banquet. Our table was full of women and children, and no one drank, so I brought it back. Zhou Shuling put the wine in front of Lu Chang'an as if it were a treasure. Can't all the unfinished wine at the banquet be refunded? If we don't do that, there's no reason to back out of the banquet. Zhou Shuling looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. Drink it quickly. There's Wulianjai. I heard it's very valuable. But this is Wulianjai. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhou Shuling with her hands on the table and her chin, looking a little proud and expectant after presenting the treasure. Lu Chang'an opened the bottle cap and drank. Fortunately, the beef hooves were well cooked and the tendons were not too soft. Some parts were crispy, while others were chewy and chewy. Lu Chang'an drank the entire bottle of good wine. He knew that if he didn't finish it, Zhou Shuling would definitely not waste the bottle of good wine in her eyes. Either she would drink it herself or use it for cooking. Lu Chang'an didn't bother to explain anything to her. It would be easier to finish the drink, lest she finally realize it and show regret to herself. It turns out I am really a stupid mother in her pitiful eyes. After drinking the fake wine, Lu Chang'an went downstairs, not forgetting to warn her. Wait, when I finish Dongdong's bed, you can take your sweetheart back. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he went back to sleep. Zhou Shuling's face turned red, so this was what he was thinking? Is this just telling the truth while drunk? Really, if he doesn't find a partner, is it hindering him? Early the next morning, Lu Chang'an vaguely heard a rooster crow and woke up before dawn. He drank a whole bottle of fake wine last night. This stuff did no harm to Lu Chang'an's body, but he sometimes experienced the effects of being drunk. The most direct manifestation was that it allowed him to sleep a little longer. Lu Chang'an washed his face and brushed his teeth, preparing to train the dog. When he went downstairs, he saw Zhou Shuling doing morning exercises under the sycamore tree. This was a difficult situation. Were you shocked by Qin Yinan's figure yesterday? Lu Chang'an exposed Zhou Shuling with a smile. Zhou Shuling rolled her eyes at him and said nothing. I feel bad. Early in the morning, Lu Chang'an patted Zhou Shuling on the shoulder, and then hit her several times quickly on her back, neck, and arms. Zhou Shuling almost screamed. When Lu Chang'an stopped, she was surprised to find, hey, why do I feel like I have been stretched by you? It is much easier for me to do these movements. It's good to know that adults will inevitably have stiff muscles and rough blood. Exercise will get twice the result with half the effort. Only by stretching the muscles and blood vessels can you get twice the result with half the effort. Lu Chang'an also twisted his body a few times. You are so early in the morning, you are giving me a look, get beaten. You, who told you to talk nonsense when you were drunk last night? Zhou Shuling gave him another unconvinced eye roll. She was not afraid of him, and of course she didn't really care. If she was really unhappy, she wouldn't talk to him. What did I say? Lu Chang'an really didn't remember, not because he was drunk, but because he just said it casually sometimes. I didn't say anything. Zhou Shuling ran to the wall to do morning exercises. Old man Qian came to take pictures of the tree again. Because it was wrapped with plastic wrap, he seemed to feel that it was a favorable environment created by others, and it felt a bit advantageous to take advantage of it, so two other old men and ladies came to take pictures of the tree together. Lu Chang'an ignored them, took a piece of Zhou Dongdong's clothes and covered the dog's head with only its eyes exposed, and took Lu Xin out for a walk. Training a dog is not something that takes a day or two, but for Lu Chang'an, it doesn't take too much time. What's more, if the dog takes a familiar little owner to and from school, it can easily do it rain or shine, even better than humans. Be punctual and persistent. After training the dog, he came back and rushed Zhou Dongdong, who was almost late and still sitting under the sycamore tree waiting to ride the dog to school, to go to school. Lu Chang'an also walked to school. Not sure if it was because of the fake wine he drank last night, Lu Chang'an felt that the sun had a halo today, forming a more beautiful light spot in front of his eyes. He squinted at the sun for a while, recalled the course and classroom, and found himself teaching building. There are classes in the first and second periods today. The freshmen are quite active in going to school. The required classes are in a large classroom with several classes. There are still more than 10 minutes left before class starts and it is already almost full. Lu Chang'an took a casual look and found Wei Xuanyi, Sun Shutong and Qin's Haiqiang sitting together in the back row. Qin's Haiqiang was playing with his mobile phone with his head down. When Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong saw Lu Chang'an, they did not wave to him to sit together. Lu Chang'an sat casually in the front row. Yan Qingcheng silently took back the book she had used to occupy the seat and placed it in front of Lu Chang'an. Although Yan Qingcheng felt that there was no need to be afraid of Lu Chang'an, for this school that started fighting at the beginning of the school year and went to a hotel with the counselor to book a room, it's better not to provoke a domineering student tyrant. For example, remind him that he is sitting in the seat he wants to occupy. Yan Qingcheng didn't know whether to say hello to him, but seeing him staring at the ceiling in trance, Yan Qingcheng gave up the idea. However, a girl next to Yan Qingcheng bumped into Yan Qingcheng excitedly. Lu Chang'an. It's Lu Chang'an, the girl whispered excitedly to the person next door. The row behind Yan Qingcheng was a girl from another class. Obviously no one thought that Lu Chang'an would choose a seat surrounded by girls. There were basically no male students in the first 3 rows in the middle. The girls in this class have undoubtedly heard of Lu Chang'an's name. This kind of boy who can be in the limelight for good or bad things will arouse the girls' interest in gossip, so many things about Lu Chang'an are spread. Yan Qingcheng is a little confused. A romantic young man who can't be said to do all kinds of evil, but who has absolutely nothing to do with good qualities, is attracting your attention like this? If you really want to fall in love, those boys who have a correct attitude towards life and study and have normal outlook on life are the ones you should pay attention to. What a coincidence! Lu Chang'an had just watched a spider on the ceiling eat a mosquito, and turned around to see Yan Qingcheng. What a coincidence, he, what a coincidence! Yan Qingcheng responded awkwardly. She sat next to him for 5 minutes before he realized that she was Yan Qingcheng. What a coincidence! The girl who helped Yan Qingcheng occupy the seat came and was slightly surprised to see someone sitting next to Yan Qingcheng. Then she glanced at Lu Chang'an, smiled at Yan Qingcheng, showed a knowing expression, and looked at Yan Qingcheng, made a cheering gesture and sat in the back row. Zhu Huntang was almost the last one to come in. When he saw Lu Chang'an sitting in the front row, he glanced at Yan Qingcheng. She didn't speak or look for a seat. You want to sit here with me? Yan Qingcheng asked tentatively. If you don't sit here, I will sit here. Zhu Huntang felt that what she meant was a little different from what Yan Qingcheng understood. She didn't want Yan Qingcheng's position, but if there was no one here, she doesn't mind sitting down. Yan Qingcheng already felt on pins and needles, and she quickly waved her hand to the girls next door to move aside, making room for Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang placed a thin cushion on the seat and sat down. After all, it was really disgusting for the fairy to feel the warmth of other people's buttocks. Thank you very much for your support. There are always people who feel that Xiahua should not get the monthly pass, but there are always classmates who will support Xiahua. Thank you. There will be another chapter later. Everyone, go to bed early and read it when you get up tomorrow morning. Xiahua continues to struggle. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Can Ru Xiahua. Chapter 381. Except for Lu Chang'an, who seemed to be attending class very seriously every day, but actually had no idea what he was thinking. Yan Qingcheng felt that everyone was satisfied with the current situation. She successfully avoided being next to Lu Chang'an, and she probably didn't anger Lu Chang'an, making him realize that she actually disliked sitting with him. Zhu Huntang also sat next to Lu Chang'an as he wished. Yan Qingcheng did not offend her, and everyone's demands were met. Maybe Lu Chang'an is also very satisfied. After all, he is a playboy. He has a girlfriend like An Nuan and brings Qin Yanan, who comes from a wealthy family, to the hotel. So it would not be surprising if he gets together with Zhu Huntang. Qin Yanan has proven that women who come from a wealthy family are not necessarily able to avoid scumbag men, but they can definitely face those men who are good at playing with women. Before coming to school, her mother, who rarely told her what to pay attention to in college life, reminded her for the first time not to fall in love casually. On the college campus, whether it is between students or between teachers and students, there will be no results. In short, Yan Qingcheng felt more and more that Lu Chang'an was too dangerous. Looking back now, Lu Chang'an suddenly made that okay gesture towards him, which was such a dangerous signal that made people's hearts tremble. Yan Qingcheng lowered her head and stared at her book. Zhu Huntang adjusted the cushion at several angles and finally sat down safely. There is no central air conditioner in the classroom, only a vertical air conditioner, Zhu Huntang said to Lu Chang'an in surprise after looking around. It's really too hot, so I usually bring my own cattail leaf fan, Lu Chang'an said nonchalantly. The cattail leaf fan still has great heritage and vitality because it is simple to make, durable and very practical. Zhu Huntang knew what a cattail fan was, that kind of fan made of unknown leaves. It was dusty and hard. The most common time she saw Lu Chang'an was sitting under the sycamore tree, reading a book and drinking tea, while shaking the cattail fan, like an old man. No, he is indeed a terrible old man. This vertical air conditioner is still the type that can blow people to death. How do these people do things? Zhu Huntang was angry. The school's funds are limited. Did you think you came to a resort hotel? Lu Chang'an recalled the bitter experience. It already felt like a luxury to have such a large vertical air conditioner. I thought back then, the classroom was as hot as a steamer, and everyone still thought it was a luxury. Aren't you just as thirsty for knowledge? I don't blame the school. Zhu Huntang took his mobile phone and sent a message. I clearly sent them the curriculum, but didn't they know to install temperature adjusting equipment in advance in the classroom where I was going to teach? What a bunch of guys who don't work for money, they look like corpses, 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 corpses. Can you have a vegetarian meal at the corpse position? Yan Qingcheng felt a little uncomfortable after hearing her hold back the word corpse a few times, and couldn't help but whisper. It's really a vegetarian meal for corpses. Zhu Huntang finally remembered the newly learned idiom after listening to the narration. She didn't care who was completing it. In short, for a fairy like herself, if she encounters any difficult things and solves them naturally, then it's a matter of course, no need to worry about how it is solved. How did this person become his classmate? Yan Qingcheng thought depressedly that although Lu Chang'an was a scumbag and a school bully, he was also a real academic. Yan Qingcheng had never thought about ranking him in the province. Does it have the function of freshening the air? Lu Chang'an asked casually as he watched Zhu Huntang send a message. He would not ask Zhu Huntang to live in hardship and simplicity, but he would be proactive in seeking comfort. Of course there is, these are all basic functions Zhu Huntang didn't know, but she thought it was a matter of course, just like before she walked into this classroom, she thought that the temperature and air quality in the classroom should be the one she was most accustomed to. Then I don't need to bring the cattail fan. Then did you bring any books? Zhu Huntang asked after sending the message. Forgot. What about you? I forgot too. What a coincidence. Yeah. So what are we doing here? Go to class and just listen carefully. I want to go back. That's not okay, sit down. So Zhu Huntang gave up the idea of going back. Just as the teacher entered the classroom, he obediently put his hands together on the table. Yan Qingcheng looked at her books and couldn't help but look sideways at these two people who were sitting upright but had forgotten to bring their textbooks. What are these people doing in the university? After the first class, Zhu Huntang's entourage brought her textbooks. Zhu Huntang went to the RV parked outside the teaching building to urinate, then came back with 2 bottles of orange juice and gave 1 bottle to Lu Chang'an. Yan Qingcheng and other female classmates who went to the toilet also came back. Sitting in their seats, Yan Qingcheng glanced at the 2 people drinking orange juice next to them, then took his own water bottle and poured a capful of water into it. "We should be arranging outdoor courses on farmland soon, will you go?" A young lady like Zhu Huntang who always has someone to help plan her itinerary needs to know the courses in advance. "Go, I wonder if there are any voles to catch." Lu Chang'an was looking forward to it. Vs are different from the rats that crawl around in the sewers in the city. They live in the fields, very innocent and lively, eating rice, sweet potatoes, and corn. Wait for the crops, each one will be plump and cute, exuding a delicate, juicy, oily, and smooth temperament. "Do you want to eat them?" Zhu Huntang listened to Lu Chang'an's tone, looked at his eyes and expression, and looked at him in surprise. "Certainly. You actually eat mice." Zhu Huntang doesn't care about the difference between field mice and city mice. They are both disgusting things anyway. "When I'm done, give it a try and I'll make sure you eat 3 bowls, if there's that much for you to eat," Lu Chang'an said firmly. "You can eat it yourself." "I'm going to tell Yaya that you eat mice." Zhu Huntang quickly said frankly that he was going to sow discord. "You can't stand it when the man you like actually eats mice, right?" Zhu Huntang still hopes that Qin Yan'an will stop being Lu Chang'an's dog because of this, so that he might have an extra helper when he confronts Lu Chang'an. "Did you know that there is another kind of mouse called bamboo rat? Is it closely related to you?" Lu Chang'an even wanted to give Zhu Huntang a nickname like bamboo rat. Bamboo rat? Zhu Huntang has never eaten this kind of thing. Even if she has eaten many dishes, there is no need to know the names of the raw materials. Lu Chang'an went to the online store and searched for bamboo rats. There were previews of bamboo rats that had been processed and burned like long-tailed piglets. Zhu Huntang took a look and just drank the orange juice, and immediately vomited it out in disgust. Lu Chang'an expressionlessly moved his eyes from his mobile phone screen to Zhu Huntang, because Zhu Huntang spat out orange juice all over him. He searched for such pictures for Zhu Huntang. He really wanted to disgust her, but how could she vomit all over him? Although he was a little embarrassed and humiliated, Zhu Huntang couldn't help but lie on the table and laugh. Yesterday, he just wanted to retaliate against him for giving him chestnuts. Today, he finally let out a bad breath, even at the cost of damaging the little fairy's image, but it feels so good. "I really can't hold on any longer, so I'll update a big chapter tonight." In addition, Kidian has a year-end ceremony where you can vote for Zaiwa and characters, the ultimate honor of the year. I hope everyone will support this book. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 382. People who stink generally don't like people who are as stinky as themselves, or who are stinkier than themselves. This is just a rule summary, not Zhu Huntang's personal consciousness, because the words fairy and stink should not be associated together. In short, Zhu Huntang only thinks that Lu Chang'an is a stinker, and it is very satisfying to see such a stinker being defeated. He couldn't possibly kill her just because she spat orange juice all over him, right? Zhu Huntang was a little worried that he picked up his own orange juice and poured it on her. Lu Chang'an didn't do this, he wouldn't waste his orange juice like this. Zhu Huntang quickly threw away the orange juice in his hand. "What a waste," Yan Qingcheng shook his head. "Ordinary orange juice costs 3 yuan, and the more expensive freshly squeezed orange juice in the supermarket costs 30 yuan, not to mention what Zhu Huntang drank." Do you think I will open the bottle cap and pour the orange juice over your head? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang calmly. You can't. Zhu Huntang quickly put his hands in front of his chest and put them down again and again to calm Lu Chang'an's seemingly calm mood. Of course I won't. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he stood up and said, I'm going to wash my hands. Zhu Huntang watched Lu Chang'an walk out of the classroom and blinked in surprise. Is Lu Chang'an so easy to talk to? It's none of my business. Zhu Huntang turned around and said to Yan Qingcheng. Yan Qingcheng hesitated, nodded, and shook her head. She didn't know why Zhu Huntang asked her, and she didn't have an objective position. She just didn't want to talk to Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang didn't really want to seek support from Yan Qingcheng, and then saw Lu Chang'an walking in with a pack of tissues while wiping, and a bottle of jasmine tea in the other hand. Would you like orange juice? Lu Chang'an handed Zhu Huntang the orange juice he had left in his seat. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an very suspiciously, then shook his head, and felt that although Lu Chang'an was very suspicious, rejecting him might cause disputes when he attacked first, so he pointed at the jasmine tea in Lu Chang'an's hand. I drink this. Lu Chang'an hesitated for a moment, then handed the jasmine tea to Zhu Huntang, then opened the orange juice and drank it himself. Zhu Huntang looked at the drink bottle carefully, squeezed it, turned it around to see if the bottle cap was intact, and then opened it and drank. I bought it from a vending machine outside, Lu Chang'an said casually. I rarely drink such cheap drinks. Zhu Huntang took another sip. Most of her cheap consumption activities were with Qin Yinan, because Qin Yinan often bought food and drinks on the roadside and gave them to her. Zhu Huntang. How is the taste? Generally, this kind of jasmine tea is obviously made with essence. The aroma is not very fresh and natural. Zhu Huntang tasted it again and tightened the bottle cap. He didn't plan to drink it anymore. He had already given Lu Chang'an a lot of face. Lu Chang'an took it over, turned it over, and said in surprise, sure enough, there is food flavor. Do you actually know about such a thing? This is common sense. Zhu Huntang was slightly proud. Do you know 3-methylindole? Its molecular formula is C9H9N. Lu Chang'an wrote down a molecular formula and showed it to Zhu Huntang. I know all these letters and numbers. I know half of these two words, Yinduo. I guess the pronunciation of half of them is about the same. Zhu Huntang frowned. Who knew these messy things? You are so smart. Their pronunciation is indeed half, Lu Chang'an said with appreciation. My chemistry is okay, Zhu Huntang admitted reservedly. 3-methylindole is widely found in feces, sweet roots, camphor wood, tar, and other substances, and can also be extracted from feces, Lu Chang'an continued. Are you going to give me a chemistry class? Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an doubtfully, patted the tabletop with both hands, and put his feet together and apart under the desk to show that he was quite uninterested. 3-methylindole has the odor of feces, so it is also called scatol. When it is too concentrated, it makes people feel sick. After dilution, what do you think it smells like? A less stinky smell, Zhu Huntang frowned. No, it smells like jasmine. Jasmine scent. Yes, the flavor added to the jasmine tea you just drank was diluted with scatol. How about it? Have you gained knowledge again? Lu Chang'an, you. Zhu Huntang didn't care about settling accounts with Lu Chang'an, and hurriedly ran out of the classroom, skipping class, and felt as sick as if he was going to die. Really, it's really hypocritical. Lu Chang'an shook his head. He did not lie to Zhu Huntang, but any science student with a little bit of brain would know that since the raw materials of substances are widely available, it is absolutely impossible to collect feces everywhere for extraction. Because the cost of collecting and storing materials is too high, the pollution is too great, and the residue treatment is too troublesome. Most people know it and treat it as interesting trivia. Even fairies like Zhu Huntang, when they hear that what they eat is associated with the word dung, they feel that it is almost like eating shit. It was so pretentious that Lu Chang'an started drinking orange juice. "Are you telling the truth?" Yan Qingcheng couldn't help but ask. "Oh, you have been eavesdropping on our conversation." Lu Chang'an nodded. "Really?" Yan Qingcheng's cheeks were slightly red, and she was very glad that she had brought a bottle of boiled water, but this person is really disgusting. Many girls have misophobia, not to mention a wealthy daughter like Zhu Huntang. He actually feeding shit to others. This is probably how Zhu Huntang feels. After the second period of class, Zhu Huntang was nowhere to be seen. Lu Chang'an went to the dormitory to change his clothes and attended 3 or 4 more classes before receiving 3 text messages from Zhu Huntang at noon. Hashtag. Not cute at all, like a fool. Lu Chang'an went to eat. There were no classes in the afternoon, and it actually started raining again. Lu Chang'an didn't bring an umbrella and didn't mind getting wet. However, he planned to go to the library to read. He couldn't read there while dripping with water. The cleaning lady would inevitably complain about him carrying a puddle of water around like a kappa. It's a rainy day, a guest day. The rain seems to be going on for a while. Lu Chang'an thinks that he might as well go home and casually walks outside the school. Passing by the faculty activity center, he sees 2 people neither holding an umbrella nor holding an umbrella. Wearing a raincoat, he actually sat outside and played chess without moving. The chessboard was carved on the stone table. The 2 people's spirit in trying to decide the winner was really amazing, so Lu Chang'an walked over and took a look. It turned out to be Su Zhancheng and Ren Changhong. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 383. Staying still in the wind and rain has always been a standard feature of the noble spirit. Throughout the ages, the image that many literati have longed for or tried to construct is Zhangzhai's fisherman's song. In front of Zisai Mountain, egrets fly, and peach blossoms flow into the flowing water, where mandarin fish are fat. Green bamboo hat, green koi raincoat, slanting wind and drizzle do not need to return. How elegant and chic. But with a bamboo hat on her head and a raincoat on her head, there is no problem in the slanting wind and drizzle. The clothes of Su Zhancheng and Ren Changhong were both wet. Su Zhancheng's hair was still luxuriant and wet against his forehead, but Ren Changhong had few hairs left. The rain washed away the bald man's carefully covered hair on his head, revealing a smooth patch. The 2 of them were soaked to the skin, revealing the rich back and waist of the middle-aged and elderly man, which had nothing to do with elegance and chicness. If modern people hadn't become more confident in their body's resistance, otherwise they would have died if they contracted wind cold under circumstances like this in ancient times. The wind and rain came and went, the trees shook and the water fell. Lu Chang'an walked over and took a look. No wonder they couldn't walk anymore. The 2 sides were fighting fiercely. The situation was in full swing. The 2 of them concentrated their energy and looked fierce. They were planning to gather their forces and capture them in one fell swoop. King. 2 stinky chess baskets. Lu Chang'an was a true gentleman watching the chess without speaking. Lu Chang'an did not give them any advice. The 2 of them were really evenly matched on the scene, but there were obvious mistakes that would be caught by the other side to establish a victory. However, their energy was not focused on observing the situation, but on observing the situation. Trying to use verbal attacks to get the other person to surrender. Give it up early. My wife is not at home today. Are you going to waste time with me? I'm not a henpecked person. Is your daughter coming back today? Don't say such useless things. You know in your heart that I will win within 10 steps. But, you can't beat me in 100 moves? Do you know how to read chess? Lu Chang'an watched for a while and found it really boring. Just as he was about to leave, a young woman ran over with an umbrella and yelled, "Dad, Uncle Sue, you think you are still young? You can't sit here in such heavy rain. Move, do you still need your body? It'll be over soon, it'll be over soon." Su Zhancheng waved his hand and said, and as soon as he waved his hand, a stream of water poured out. "Huh, whatever you do today, it doesn't matter who wins or loses." Ren Changhong stood up and pointed at Su Zhancheng, "I'll spare you for once." Su Zhancheng immediately became dissatisfied, "We have to finish today. Don't go back and tell nonsense that your situation is great and that you are within 10 steps as soon as you leave. Isn't this a great situation? Look at me first. Why do I have to do this? I have to." The young woman reached out and made a stroke on the chessboard. The two of them looked at each other with your lucky eyes and shook their hands behind their backs. The young woman gave Su Zhancheng an umbrella and glanced at Lu Chang'an, who had been standing here watching. Lu Chang'an turned and left. "Dad, is that boy watching you play chess your student?" "No, I don't know him." "Of course he was fascinated by it. This is a rare good game, a fairy game. This is indeed true. If it were placed in ancient times, it would be a good story in the chess world. The masters competed with each other and attracted the fans to be intoxicated, regardless of wind and rain. Stop bragging, you two can't make it to the top 32 in the school chess competition. It's a joke, we don't care about fighting for this false reputation. We are the ones who competed against Lao Lu. Back then, Lao Lu won 6 consecutive championships. Can our level be any different? We are on the same level. You have been saying this for almost 20 years. Ah, it's been almost 20 years. Old Lu has been gone for so long." Lu Chang'an walked home without going upstairs. He opened the door downstairs and took out the rattan box under the bed. On a rainy day, the air was a little moist, and the box felt slightly sticky to the touch. Lu Chang'an took a tissue and rubbed it outside. Opening the box, he took out the diary. The old paper still had a tough texture. When he ran it between his fingers, it smelled like the passage of time. Looking at the memories and pictures evoked by the handwriting, Lu Chang'an looked calm and read each page. Pages teased his own mood. People from Hopkins are here. As the world's top research university, its strength in the fields of medicine, biomedicine, and life sciences is unquestionable. However, our host still does not consciously and enthusiastically and vigilantly act from a humble position. In response, I almost always cooperate unconditionally with any request from the other party. Some of my experimental materials seem to have been read. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, we are like transfer students, eager and looking forward to integrating into the new class. We always think that as long as we give everything we have, we can exchange for the recognition and equal enthusiasm of other students. For more than 100 years, we have faced in such a cruel world, we are still innocent at this moment. Su Zhancheng and Ren Changhong met a woman from Hopkins today. She is said to be very beautiful. Their description of her virtue must be a bit exaggerated. After all, the so-called beautiful female students they recently tried to get me to know are not as good-looking as Yan Hui, nor are they Director Liu's wife is pretty. They said that this woman seems to be gossiping about some personal information about me, but she didn't come to me directly. There seems to be some problem. I'm just an ordinary person. I have restrained all my enhanced abilities, but I still accidentally expose something. Sure enough, the people's hearts that have been coveting evolution and immortality for thousands of years have never disappeared. Otherwise, how could I look for this aspect? Lu Chang'an closed his diary as he listened to the footsteps behind him. Come for a walk with me sometime. Okay. Lu Chang'an unexpectedly turned around and saw Shang Guandandan, but today she was not wearing the gorgeous clothes of her mother, but she was wearing a moon-white long dress, with long hair disheveled, and the girl's light body looked like a spring under the long dress. The willow branches of the tree bloomed with buds, covering the waist of the tree. But I don't want to go out yet. I'm a little tired of reading the book. Shangguan brows and eyes looked a little bored, especially after reading a Gongdo when in the past few days, I went from enjoying it to suddenly feeling bored in an instant. What are you watching Gongdo when? I don't watch City Soldier King. Lu Chang'an and Shangguan chatted peacefully. In fact, as long as she didn't act like a mom, Lu Chang'an was quite willing to chat with her. He had been looking forward to it before. Wait for her to come out and talk to him. Yes, but people nowadays are thinking about things that are incomprehensible. I read a book, and the person I thought was my mother turned out to be my daughter. Nowadays, in this world, you can make fun of Tsunade ethics at will. Shangguan shook his head, and then looked at Lu Chang'an. Yes, so if you try to emphasize your identity as a mother, I won't take it seriously. Lu Chang'an understood what she was trying to say. She seemed to be planning to persevere until Lu Chang'an agreed and returned to the state before the two of them had a bloody night in Viang Palace. What a boring little girl. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 384. Although she is a boring little girl, Lu Chang'an still agrees with her point of view. In the past, the biggest reason why the ethics of ethics was important and vigorously maintained by the ruling class was not the needs of human nature, but the need for governance. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Now ethics of ethics is no longer the focus of ideological propaganda. It's because the current foundation for national social stability is focused on high-speed and high-volume economic development. This is true for many things. If there is less demand for it, it will become less important. Shangguan had no intention of discussing this with Lu Chang'an and continued. Later, the male protagonist discovered that his sister might be his wife, and then he discovered that the girl he thought was his cousin was actually his daughter, and he also discovered that he was his aunt. In fact, she is also a daughter, and to find out that someone who was originally an aunt is actually a daughter, is terrible. It sucks. What the hell is this? Lu Chang'an agreed. The current online novels are really mixed and imaginative. There is another book that the author did not narrate, but readers generally believe that the daughter's daughter is still the protagonist's daughter. It's been blocked. Yes. That's for sure. Although Gangchang ethics is no longer promoted everywhere, it is not in line with the core values of socialism. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Why does an excellent novel need these nasty things? It's really a good thing. You kill yourself and get what you want. What I want to know is, where are you? Shangguan walked up to Lu Chang'an and reached out to hold the diary in his hand. I'm not the protagonist of the novel, how could I do such a messy thing? Lu Chang'an thought carefully and confirmed, my life has always been ordinary and unremarkable. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he found that Shangguan was looking at him with complex eyes that needed to be interpreted, obviously not agreeing with his understanding of himself. You haven't been sleeping obediently like me. I looked through some information left by the Immortals, and they all intersect with their own descendants. After they change their appearance, they often choose their outstanding descendants a few generations later to extract the bloodline. Shangguan did not intend to continue talking to Lu Chang'an about the past. She was just curious about Lu Chang'an's life over the years. I didn't. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Also, let me remind you that what you are reading is not information, it is just a novel. That means that the only person in the world who is truly related to you is me, Shangguan said, pointing to his chest. No, there are two more. Shangguan thought for a while, combined with the information he overheard, and understood. I want to move to the house above you, Shangguan said urgently. His cheeks were slightly red, and his chest was rising and falling with tension. He didn't know how much fear and psychological barriers she had to overcome to make such a request. You've been going around for a long time just for this. Lu Chang'an also understood and was talking nonsense. Shangguan nodded vigorously. There's no problem with this, I'll let you live upstairs. I'll live here, Lu Chang'an said nonchalantly. Forget it. Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Chang'an angrily. He had told him so many very important things about ethics. Why didn't he understand the principle of crows and magpies in the forest? The mother never loses her chicks. Oh, that's good. Lu Chang'an nodded and stood up, put the diary away and put it back where it belonged, and walked out of the house. Shang Guandandan approached the door, opened the door crack and peeked outside, then leaned against the door and sighed. The old mother with white head cries behind the door, rolling up the sleeves of her shirt and leaving them on. The world outside the door is like a fairyland, like hell, like the phantoms of monsters in a foreign land. They wear strange clothes, speak weird accents, use vulgar slang, drive machine armor, and approach the sky in the buildings inserted into the sky, but they have lost their ethics. Only next to the sycamore tree, there was an aura that made Shang Guandandan temporarily comfortable. 2,000 years have passed. No matter how deeply those memories are embedded in the painting, thinking about it carefully, the feeling of eternal isolation becomes stronger. If he is really alone, Shang Guandandan would rather fall asleep again. He woke her up, but wanted to cut off all the past events and treat her as something to talk about after the clouds disappeared. How could he be like this? Immortals are ruthless on the road. Is this really the case? Let's go read the novel. Shang Guan lay in the coffin indifferently. Lu Chang'an went home and worked overtime painting, when Zhou Shuling opened the door and came in. Zhou Shuling wore an A-line skirt made of purple hollow fabric and an undershirt of the same color. The undershirt was embroidered with golden butterflies spreading their wings. When walking through the hollow gaps, the butterflies seemed to be flying. The material on the shoulders and collarbone is semi-transparent, vaguely showing the graceful and reserved style of the young woman. A blind date, Lu Chang'an laughed. He actually wore a stainless steel bracelet on his wrist that seemed to cost at least 20 or 30 yuan. Zhou Shuling usually doesn't wear anything on her hands because she has to run a stall, make breakfast, etc. She finds it inconvenient. I'm not a girl from your family who can't get married. Why do you always worry about this? Zhou Shuling ran down in a good mood, not to talk to him about such an unhappy topic for a divorced young woman. Oh, to be honest, it's a bit difficult for you to get married again without anyone else to worry about. You don't have a good brain, and you don't know how to dress up. You dress like an old mother. Lu Chang'an is not afraid of attacking Zhou Shuling. Who makes her even an all-star? They all looked at each other. Tell me, what do you want to do? Let me ask you, Zhou Dongdong told me today that there are piles of crayfish at the buffet, and there are also piles of large lobsters and crabs. Zhou Shuling bent down and squatted next to Lu Chang'an with her skirt pressed. Stretched out his head and turned around to look at him in disbelief. Yes, Lu Chang'an waved his hand, rang, don't stop me from painting. Then if you are a good eater, you can still eat enough at the expensive buffet. Zhou Shuling calculated how many kilograms of crayfish, how many large lobsters and crabs would be eaten to make back the money. I want to take Zhou Dongdong to the buffet. Lu Chang'an suddenly remembered something and threw away the brush in his hand. Are you two going? Zhou Shuling quickly chased after her and looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. Yes, she tastes so delicious. She must want to eat at the buffet again. I sent you to ask me. Lu Chang'an nodded. Zhou Shuling pursed her lips. The buffet makes people unable to help but eat a lot. It is not suitable for those who want to lose weight and dislike the fat on their belly. Lu Chang'an walked upstairs. Zhou Shuling followed upstairs, holding her hands in front of her lower abdomen and pulling on her skirt. Zhou Shuling counted out 2 of the 3 half-price coupons and handed them to Lu Chang'an. She walked to the refrigerator, opened the refrigerator door, and whispered, I'll heat up 2 vegetable buns and eat them later. Lu Chang'an took Zhou Dongdong downstairs, and Zhou Shuling followed, but stood on the steps of the first floor and watched them. Let's go. Why are you standing there? Lu Chang'an looked at her aggrieved look and couldn't help laughing. If I don't take you to the buffet, you won't go by yourself. I just said what? I'm suddenly interested in the buffet, why don't you go if you have a half-price coupon? Take me there. Zhou Shuling was overjoyed and hurriedly ran upstairs. I haven't taken the half-price coupon yet. Wait for me, don't leave first. Mom, Mom. Zhou Dongdong opened his mouth and turned to look at Lu Chang'an. Mom is a stupid mother, Lu Chang'an said for Zhou Dongdong. Brother Chang'an, can you put me under the creaking nest when you come back? Zhou Dongdong said expectantly. Lu Chang'an nodded. Everyone in this group was very stupid. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 385. Zhou Shuling went upstairs and took down the remaining half-price coupon and handed it to Lu Chang'an. While walking out of the community, Zhou Shuling reported where the half-price coupons came from. It turned out that she was also a manager of Baojun Group. She often came here to eat rice noodles. Zhou Shuling would give eggs or something from time to time. People were also polite, and they would have dinner for department team building activities. He bought a gourmet membership at the restaurant and it came with some coupons. He took 3 of them to Zhou Shuling. When he gave you the coupon, did he say that the restaurant actually tasted pretty good and that he wanted to go there again? Lu Chang'an asked. Zhou Shuling thought about it carefully and said, it seems to be possible. If it is delicious and cost-effective, I will definitely want to go there again. Lu Chang'an nodded to express his understanding. It seems that baby mothers are still very popular. In fact, for middle-aged men who are realistic, consider marriage as the basis for dating, and want to start a family, the traditional feminine warmth women who are kind but not lacking in hard-working qualities are more popular than girls who have basically nothing but youth and a pretty face. Is Zhou Shuling knowingly and pretending to be confused in this regard, or is she really slow? This is difficult to judge, but Lu Chang'an can also see that Zhou Shuling has been on blind dates a lot as a divorced young woman with children. She suffered a lot of blows during the blind date, and she probably gradually developed some feelings of inferiority. It can be seen from Zhou Shuling's reaction when she met Go Shanhai last time that she really believed that her conditions were at a disadvantage. Lu Chang'an didn't like being a matchmaker, so he didn't say much. He planned to prepare a seafood salad tonight to try. In fact, the buffet not only saves the hassle of ordering, but people who know how to eat can mix and make many flavors by themselves. After all, usually I don't have so many ingredients to prepare and experiment in my own kitchen. Zhou Dongdong raised his hands behind his back, then made a beep sound in his mouth, and trotted to the front. Lu Chang'an and Zhou Shuling walked side by side behind and watched. Did you see that when children imitate the sound of an airplane, it's not like oh 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 use sounds when children imitate airplanes? Lu Chang'an repeated his old saying. She is imitating a machine gun, Zhou Shuling corrected Lu Chang'an. Will a machine gun charge like this? Didn't you see her charging action? Then she is imitating an uncle from the People's Liberation Army who charges with a machine gun on his back. Zhou Shuling thought for a while and came to a conclusion based on Zhou Dongdong's history. It makes sense. At this time, a helicopter was flying in the sky. The flying altitude was relatively low, and the outline could be seen relatively clearly. Listen carefully, is the helicopter roaring? Isn't it? Of course not. But why do I think it's called that? Because your brain is not working well. She will scold me and Dongdong. Just scold her. After chatting all the way, we arrived at the restaurant. The waiter who greeted us brought a small toy to Zhou Dongdong and said with a smile, "Kids, welcome to come again." They still remember Dongdong, Zhou Shuling said to Lu Chang'an with some pride. Actually, in the eyes of outsiders, Dongdong looks pretty good and quite cute. As she said this, Zhou Shuling looked at Lu Chang'an with a look like, do you know whose daughter this is? That's because it's really rare to see such an eatable kid. I can't help but be impressed. Lu Chang'an nodded, a little unsure. You want to say this, Zhou Dongdong is up to you. No. She didn't follow me. She can eat it herself, it's none of my business. Zhou Shuling waved her hand quickly. The waiter took the person to the seat, asked what he wanted to drink and left. Lu Chang'an lifted Zhou Dongdong and placed him on a chair. Only then did Zhou Dongdong come to his senses and hurriedly jumped down to get something to eat. Why was she so stunned just now? Zhou Shuling asked puzzledly. Crashed. Obviously I was so excited to see so many delicious foods. Then you still ask me. Zhou Shuling also went to get food with Lu Chang'an. She followed Lu Chang'an and took whatever Lu Chang'an took. After walking around for a while, the three of them sat down to eat. Zhou Shuling asked in a low voice, how many times can I get them? Why do you only get 2 crabs? I think everyone else piled them on a plate. Eat slowly, take it out when you're done, and eat something else if you don't have it anymore. Someone else piled up a plate. Maybe there is a table full of people, and it is possible that he can help others get some. Then I'll get some more for you. With this reason, Zhou Shuling happily went to get the crabs. She originally thought that if a person took too much, he would be considered to have no quality. Zhou Shuling went to bring 6 crabs over and said, when I was a child, I had a buffet hot pot in the town. It only cost 39 yuan per person. Later, it gradually became 49 or 59 yuan. I have never eaten there again. You can just eat with peace of mind. Eat at the buffet. She's even more excited than Zhou Dongdong. Look, she has already eaten 2 crabs. Lu Chang'an was surprised. This child's skills and talents are all about eating crabs. Not only did she eat huang, but she also poked out the thickest part of the leg and ate it. This was a skillful job. Don't eat too much. Eating too much crab will cause stomachache, Zhou Shuling said to Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an couldn't let the 2 of them eat too much crab, so he gave up making the seafood salad. While they were eating, a man wearing black-rimmed glasses came over and put a bottle of red wine in his hand on the table. Zhou Shuling, long time no see, the man greeted with a smile. Zhou Shuling looked at the man and was stunned for a moment. She felt that he looked familiar. After thinking for a while, she suddenly realized it and smiled. Mi Jiaoming, right. Mi Jiaoming then pulled out a stool and sat down. He let go of the red wine in his hand and said with a smile, I went back during the summer vacation. I heard someone said that you were in Juncha and asked for your number. But I couldn't come over. Since Juncha, I have been busy with work and haven't had time to contact you. I didn't expect that I had some free time these days and planned to get together with my classmates in Juncha, but I bumped into you first. My classmates from Juncha, I'm not familiar with them. Zhou Shuling laughed awkwardly. The society is so realistic. Students with a little bit of cultivation may not directly embarrass others, make sarcastic remarks, etc., but they will wake up early and wait until late. When you start a business, your life is not as you want, and you don't have much spare money to socialize and have fun, so why bother trying to join other people's circles? It doesn't matter, we'll get to know each other as soon as we get together. Mi Jiaoming turned to look at Lu Chang'an next to him. Is this your husband? Zhou Shuling was stunned for a moment. How could Lu Chang'an be regarded as her husband? He was obviously just a high school student, Zhou Dongdong's brother Chang'an. Then Zhou Shuling glanced at Lu Chang'an blankly. He actually looked at her with a half smile. Zhou Shuling suddenly his cheeks turned red. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 386. Lu Chang'an pointed at Zhou Shuling and explained, we are partners and opened a restaurant together in Bailong Center. Xiaoling is the restaurant manager. Mi Jiaoming looked at Zhou Shuling with admiration and quickly apologized. I'm sorry, I was preconceived. It doesn't matter, are you married too? Zhou Shuling asked casually. Not yet, I'll have time to talk about love then. Mi Jiaoming stood up and said with a smile, I still have a few friends to greet, so I'll go over there first. I'll add you on WeChat later. Okay, you're busy. Zhou Shuling waved her hand. Mi Gao called the waiter to come over and open the wine, and then walked back. You call me Xiaoling, it's really smooth, Zhou Shuling said angrily. Mi Jiaoming's misunderstanding was not too embarrassing. After all, the relationship was not really ambiguous, so she just smiled and let it go. Then I call you Xiaozhou. Lu Chang'an drank and motioned to Zhou Shuling to drink some too. Then I'm going to call you Xiao Lu, Zhou Shuling said unconvinced. Casual. Zhou Shuling thought about it and felt a little disadvantaged. He took advantage of calling himself Xiaozhou Xiaoling, but it seemed natural to call him Xiao Lu, so he decided to drink more wine to compensate for himself. This wine seems different from the one you can get over there, Zhou Shuling said, looking at the English letters on the red wine bottle that she basically didn't recognize. Red wine that you can just open a bottle of is cheaper. He should have bought this bottle separately. It must be more expensive. Isn't it a waste if we can't finish such a large bottle? Zhou Shuling was worried that it was a waste. You can take it back or store it here. Only then did Zhou Shuling feel free to drink and eat. After finishing the buffet, Lu Chang'an went back with one on his back and one in the creaking nest. Zhou Shuling had to finish the bottle of red wine. Lu Chang'an threw Zhou Shuling on the bed and went downstairs. Zhou Dongdong did his homework for a while. After brushing his teeth, washing his face, feet, and butt, he took off his mother's shoes, hugged her mother, covered her with a quilt, and fell asleep. Lu Chang'an fell into a deep sleep without going downstairs. He finally finished painting the primer tonight, painted a little more and ventilated it, and it was almost done. After getting up in the morning, after training the dog, Lu Chang'an went to take the diary out of the vine box, drove away the child who was almost late and was still sitting under the sycamore tree waiting to ride the dog to school, and then walked to school. There were no classes in the first or second period, so Lu Chang'an slowly walked through the route he had taken countless times and came to the library near the School of Biology for self-study. He didn't choose a location. He glanced at the sunshine and shade of trees outside the window, and then sat at the seat closest to the door. It was not very quiet with people coming and going, but for Lu Chang'an, this was no problem. Lu Chang'an flipped through his previous diaries. Although the school had access to the internet and computers at that time, the internet speed was very slow. Using computers to write and record was quite a trendy way. Lu Chang'an still preferred the feeling of words flowing from the tip of his pen. It is human nature that people who write well prefer to write. It's not that if you use a computer too much, your handwriting will become ugly. This is basically just an excuse. Many people's handwriting is inherently ugly. It doesn't matter if you use computers, mobile phones, or the internet a lot. Just after turning 2 pages, I saw Bai Hui, Yan Xiang, Li Hongman, and Zhao Yu walking in together. Girls like to be in groups. In the freshman year, everyone doesn't have a boyfriend yet, and there aren't many social invitations. Even more so under the circumstances. Lu Chang'an had sung with them and looked familiar, so he smiled and nodded. Librarianship is not easy to make loud noises, although it is somewhat pleasing to see a boy with a lazy smile under the orange sunshine and bright windows early in the morning, holding a book and exuding the quiet temperament of time. The girl just smiled and waved. Except for Bai Hui, she walked over directly. People who like to sit at the door of the study room are more naughty. Lu Chang'an was lowering his head to read a book when his ears suddenly picked up such a sentence. It was said by Bai Hui. She whispered it as if Lu Chang'an couldn't hear it. This fairy, finally lost her mind. Lu Chang'an ignored it and continued to flip through his previous diaries, skipping the pages about playing cards, chess, drinking cold beer and crayfish, and found a diary related to experimental records at the back. The last time I identified M as a newly discovered intestinal bacteria, I once again adjusted the proportion of intestinal bacteria in adults to 1% minus 5% at first. I just thought that it could protect intestinal mucus, allowing ordinary humans to eat plant-based foods. The polyphenols obtained from ingestion are more easily utilized by cells. Today's experiments show that mice and monkeys whose metabolism changes due to age can slow down insulin resistance by gradually increasing AM bacteria in the intestines. There is no doubt that this kind of bacteria can be used in research to extend human lifespan, which makes people happy. Insulin resistance refers to the inability of fat cells, muscle cells, and liver cells to respond to normal concentrations of insulin. In this case, it will lead to many diseases such as diabetes, obesity, inflammation, reduced immunity, and physical weakness. AM bacteria can cause various diseases. Healthy cells are more responsive to insulin, resulting in broader and more powerful anti-aging effects. This had been Professor Liu's research direction until his death. There is no detailed research data and information recorded in the diary, but there is no doubt that some people who followed Hopkins to Hunan University were interested in research related to AM bacteria. Lu Chang'an took out his mobile phone and entered the full name of the AM bacterium, Akkermansia muciniphila, and searched for some information, which generally stated that this bacterium was discovered in 2004. Professor Lu had been dead for several years at that time. It cannot be said that others cannot conduct independent research and discoveries. They must have benefited from the research materials of Hunan University. Just like everyone generally believes that Newton and Leibniz both invented calculus. But the latest news has to make Lu Chang'an mind. A research center of Nikola Tesla Biomedical Group has made significant progress in the research of AM probiotic oral solution. Of course, this name is already well known, but little is known about it. It is still not certain whether Mrs. Karnstein and this research center are a group of people. Professor Crick has disappeared without a trace and has not sent back any information, but he feels that he knows the third wife seems to have disappeared forever. It seems that after beating up the Pierre brothers, they should be kept as living bodies. I wonder if there is a chance to dig them out now and find some bone residues or something. Forget it, Lu Chang'an is not very interested in doing this. People have lived for too long, so he is not very active in this regard. He takes his time in everything he does and takes his time. He always feels that there is no need to be nervous about the current situation. At this time, Bai Hui walked out alone, carrying a small bag, probably going to the bathroom. Lu Chang'an stood up. Bai Hui saw Lu Chang'an stand up suddenly, put his hands on his chest, shrank back, pursed his lips and looked at him without saying a word, not knowing what he was going to do. Please sit here for a moment. Lu Chang'an took his book and bag and sincerely requested Bai Hui. Bai Hui hesitated for a moment, then sat down. It's really sexy. Lu Chang'an nodded and walked out of the study room. I recommend a book called I Heard That I Will Be Very Vicious After Death. It is a book that has achieved outstanding results. The author's avatar is very nice and the book is also good looking. Akkermansia muciniphila, if there is any interest in this bacteria, I apologize in advance. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 387. Bai Hui touched her ears and confirmed that Lu Chang'an just said she was sexy. Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an's back and chased after him angrily. What did you just say? Bai Hui caught up with Lu Chang'an on a slope, ran in front of him, opened his hands and waved up and down to stop him. Bai Hui was a little out of breath. Who told him to be so tall and move so fast? He would definitely pull his balls. Bai Hui didn't even bother holding her chest, she just stared at him angrily. Modern people generally think that Sao is a derogatory word, but in fact it is not. Sao is just a manifestation of suppressed emotions. Poets used to be called Sao people, who express emotions in poems. The text Chu Si Li Sao has an annotation, Li Sao, farewell, coquettishness, and sorrow. The words have been banished and parted, and the heart is sorrowful. Lu Chang'an explained in a gentle tone, I just saw that you have something on your mind, so to say that you are indeed coquettish means that you do have something on your mind. Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an blankly, I believed you. I was obviously scolded, but I felt like I had to admire Lu Chang'an's erudition and bullshit skills. Why is this person so difficult to deal with? Bai Hui was so indignant that she felt like she had a headache just seeing him, although when she first walked into the library, she had an unpleasant surprise in her heart. You can't meet when you want to meet, but you can meet when you don't want to meet. The mood may be completely different. Why do you always feel that your heart beats faster? Bai Hui has already figured it out. Since others have misunderstood that she likes Lu Chang'an, and everyone knows that his girlfriend is An Nuan, if she is said to like Lu Chang'an, wouldn't it mean that she is not as good looking or as good looking as An Nuan? So Lu Chang'an chose An Nuan, but she still pestered Lu Chang'an, which was shameless. After I figured it out, of course I had to swear that I would never face Lu Chang'an with the same attitude as before. All the past events would be washed away with a completely different attitude in the future. In the past, I just wanted to prove my charm. How could I really like the boyfriend of a girl who had been my rival for several years? That's such a loss of points. It's time to be reserved and proud. She is still as popular as a school beauty. Many times, people secretly take photos of her and send them to social media. Many people will ask her class name when they see it. Occasionally, some people think An Nuan is more beautiful, and her fans will refute, where is the person in front of me? Humph, it's just Lu Chang'an who is a bad-tempered Lu Chang'an. Okay, I know you heard me scold you first. Bai Hui glared at Lu Chang'an. Although he was a little unwilling to do so, it was useless to talk to this person. His mouth was pink and black, and he just looked at him. Say whatever you want. Lu Chang'an laughed, but you do have something on your mind. No. I'm so happy. I learn makeup, dressing, and dressing up every day. I look better and happier every day. Bai Hui snorted. During this time, she bought a lot of fashion magazines and followed a lot of fashion magazines. Many beauty bloggers have cleared out a lot of beautiful clothes in their shopping carts. It is endless fun for girls to do this kind of thing every day. It is much more comfortable than falling in love. Moreover, they are also dating fairies like Zhu Huntang. They make an appointment and 2 or more people dress up beautifully and taste elegance. They drank tea and cakes, took selfies in various styles of backgrounds, and discussed lipsticks and cosmetics of various colors. Looking at each other, they all felt that they were beautiful and pleasing to the eye, and there was no need for big pig hooves like men at all. Especially Lu Chang'an's big pig's trotters, which cannot be chewed even if they are braised, steamed, stewed, grilled, or soaked in water. By the way, the most important thing in life is to be happy. Lu Chang'an agreed. If you do what you like, no one's happiness will be inferior to others. Bai Hui bit her lip, her eyes turned back to Lu Chang'an's face, her nose wrinkled, and she put her hands behind her back and pulled at the hem of her shirt. She was wearing a t-shirt today. It was so obvious. I think when he met An Nuan, even if he didn't deliberately compare, he would sigh. What were you reading just now? Bai Hui felt that she had chased him out so fiercely, and was dismissed by him in just a few words. It was a bit shameful and embarrassing, and she had to say a few more words. Look at the diary my father left for me. Lu Chang'an held a bag in one hand and a book in the other. Oh, I remember you said before that he was a professor at Hunan University. Bai Hui felt a little softer. Although Lu Chang'an was annoying, he was a child without a father after all. Did I tell you? Lu Chang'an thought for a moment and didn't remember. If you told An Nuan, you must remember it, right? Bai Hui felt that she shouldn't care about this, so she said nonchalantly, "Yes, such a thick diary, is it the kind of recording subject like a published diary?" Lu Chang'an opened it, flipped through it, and nodded. "Can you take a look at it for me?" Bai Hui's eyes lit up. Lu Chang'an handed it to her. Bai Hui took it and opened the first page, flipping through page after page, sighing, "The life of the older generation is really longing for people. Ordinary days, every bit is pictures and life, ordinary. There is clearly a calm elegance in the account, which is really nice. Little girls just like this feeling of peace and tranquility, and have no interest in carrying forward with heavy loads." Lu Chang'an smiled. "This is your father's diary. If you don't like it, lend it to me." Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. "This is simply a work of art. I didn't expect your father's handwriting to be as good as yours. It's just as good as the others, but the style is a little different, and it seems this is hereditary. Okay, return it to me after reading it." Lu Chang'an did not expect Bai Hui to make such a request, but he still nodded. "Even if there is some secret hidden, it doesn't matter." "Really? Thank you." Bai Hui jumped up in surprise. "But you have to promise me, if you have time, you can exchange makeup techniques with An Nuan and teach her. I think your makeup skills have the ability to turn decay into magic." Lu Chang'an left after saying that. "There is no problem with this. The girl is still very interested in the exchange of makeup techniques." She just flipped through the diary and realized that Lu Chang'an's words seemed to be mocking her again. This big pig's hooves. Bai Hui didn't bother to argue with him. She remembered what she wanted to do and quickly went to the bathroom to pee. Bai Hui returned to his seat with the diary. Then he thought that he had borrowed Lu Chang'an's diary and had to return it to him after reading it. Then he would have to take the initiative to find him. Wouldn't he have to dress up beautifully by then? That's it. She thought about it as if she cared about meeting him. Bai Hui put her breasts on the table and scratched her hair. She really didn't have a long memory. She obviously swore. Asking for a monthly pass.